Hey there, it is Leah Piper, your Tantra expert at Sex Reimagined.
And hey, I'm Dr. Willow Brown, your Taoist sexology expert at Sex Reimagined.
And today we have for you a fun topic, one that you may have never explored before. We're going to dive deep into the energy of love versus the emotion of love.
Oh my God, this is such a game changer for so many people that we have witnessed, including ourselves. And it just makes a world of difference in how you relate to those people, those very close, intimate people in your life, as well as people just out in the community, out in the world.
Yeah, and I think if you're dating, specifically if you're out in the dating world, this is an episode you do not want to miss.
That's true. Very true.
So, tune in,
turn on,
fall in love with us.
Us.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
All right. This is a fun topic.
The energy of love versus the emotion of love, and how understanding the difference can save your ass. Leah's got a good story for us.
Yeah, I being working in the tantra industry with people for so many years, one of the first fears that a lot of new teachers who are working one-on-one with students have is, what if my student falls in love with me? And there's just this like, oh my God, I don't want like the burden. I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. All this stuff kind of arises because in any type of therapeutic situation, or even like teacher, student, all sorts of different scenarios has us go into transference with the person who we are looking up to, the person who is mentoring us, the person who's guiding us. And so that's something we all have to navigate. And as I was like going through the process in my own journey, I also had those fears. Did you ever have those fears? Yeah, it's ongoing. Yeah. And then it also translates in dating. When someone likes you a little bit more than you like them, and you feel like you need to kind of slow the roll, or if someone's really ready for commitment, but you're kind of just seeing what's out there, it can create anxiety. And so it really helped me when speaking with students and with clients, and even during the times that I was dating, to go, okay, let's see if we can orient between two different types of love. One is the emotion of love, and that's a resource that really comes from our emotions. It comes from our body. It comes from our heart. And to get you to relate with this emotion of love, think of your best friends, your spouses or ex-spouses, your children, your family. There are people who are in your heart, and these are very important relationships to you. They're karmic. It's like you're going to go the distance for these people. I often say you'll go to therapy for these people. That's the emotion of love. Like it's an important relationship, and you weather storms together. And then you have the energy of love, which is not. The energy of love isn't really resourced from your body. It doesn't pull on you the way karmic emotion love does. It's connected to the everything. It's connected to the universe. It's connected to all of us. And it's the love that we feel when we see something beautiful. It's the love that we feel when we smell beautiful flower. It's the love that we feel when we see someone at the checkout line and they look so dapper.
Or even just an acquaintance. Like, oh my God, I just love that person. I wouldn't go to therapy for them, but God, I love that person in the community.
Yeah.
They're such a great person, and I love running into them, and it's always fun to see them, and just they have great energy.
Right. Like for your patients, or for, if you're holding a class for the audience, it's just that feeling of our human family can be connected, and this energy of love can be tapped into, and we can send it to each other and benefit so much from receiving it. So it started to dawn on me that it was important to have this kind of language when helping a student or a client deal with the transference, or as I start to watch them kind of wanting more of me and wanting my attention, kind of wanting this, and this, things that I wasn't prepared to give and that I had boundaries around. And so helping them stay in check and put boundaries around their own emotion of love, it turned out to be a very
So this came
responsible
from
path
you, this
forward.
emotion of love versus energy of love came from within your own experience?
You know, I was thinking about this last night, as I was laying in bed thinking about this episode today, and I was like, God, did I invent this? Did TJ invent this? Who started the seed that came up with the language of this? And I think it was either me or TJ, and Charles probably planted a seed but hadn't
Uh-huh.
put it into total form.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to take credit, but I don't
Well,
know historically if I can.
let's give you credit for it. It's pretty brilliant, and
Okay,
it's
I'll take it.
it's definitely like when you introduced it to me and our girlfriend Whitney, it was for her it was so incredibly helpful. I have always kind of had my finger on the pulse of energy. And I'm a very deeply emotional person. So the distinction for me was definitely profound. But for Whitney, who hadn't totally had her finger on the pulse of energy, it was fucking game changing, right? It was absolutely life transforming. And I think that that's one of the things that this can really bring to those who are dating, especially those who are like, God, another one bites the dust. Like, fuck, another one didn't work out. Oh my God, I'm so tired. Like, I just want to find my one. And they just keep going, relationship after relationship. And they're getting lost in their emotion of love, partially because they want it so bad, not even because it's truly
Yeah.
that's what's going on for them, their emotion. So that's another distinction, I think, with the emotion of love. Is it just because you want something so bad and you're tired of going through the motions of trying to find it over and over again? Or is it truly, truly love,
Right.
like deep emotional love?
Yeah, I think also some people feel like they
Yeah.
don't know that there's other options. It's like they start to have the ooh la las and they
Yeah.
immediately go to the emotion of love because they don't even know that they can redirect
Yeah.
their
That they could
their
stay.
system to have another option, to take some time. You can be in
Mhm.
love with the energy of love, and you can be in
Yeah.
love with
I
the
often,
emotion of love. One is gonna have
mhm.
is gonna be more high
Yeah,
risk
totally. I often will
when it
say,
comes to your
like,
heart.
even when I feel like I'm in love with a person, it's still the distinction of like, I, Willow, am in capital I, capital N. I'm in love. I'm in love with life. I'm in love. I'm
I'm in love with how
in
I
it,
feel.
I'm in
Yeah.
it all the time. And now I'm
Yeah.
in it and this other person is in it in their own right. So then there's two sovereign beings, right? This is like we're both in it
Right.
on our
Having a
own, and
shared
now we're in it
experience.
with each other. So that is a very,
Yeah.
very different
Beautiful.
way of being in love with somebody than, oh my God, I'm so in love with you, and without you, I will be lost. And I mean, that emotion might still be there. Sometimes you can't control these emotions.
When you do like cross into the world of emotion of love and that person is no longer sharing the shared experience of the emotion of love, they need to go into a different direction. There's still grief in the heart because once you put somebody in your heart, you don't get to take them out. And this is a thing I think a lot of people don't realize. They may hate that person. They may wish they never met that MF, but by God, all that
Yeah.
hate is in your heart and you're still living with it if
Yeah.
you have a charge around it. And so one of the ways you can dissipate the charge is to go into the room of that
Mhm.
heart and do the cleanup. So the way I always think of the heart, the big castle of the heart, is that we all have this beautiful, beautiful heart home. And it's like there's thousands of rooms. And for every person, place, or experience we've had that have touched us and that we've so loved and adored, it gets put into a room in our heart. And we have really complex relationships with people that we share the emotion of love with. I mean, I have the emotional
Yeah.
love with Michigan. It's like I will never live in Michigan again, but by
Mhm.
God, I'm a Michigan girl. I just have this. I want to meet every Michigan that was ever born, Michigander, and so it's like this weird thing. But Michigan is in
Mhm.
my heart, and so I remember I was dealing with daddy issues, and it was during that period of life where you start to really kind of
Mhm.
tackle some of those issues. And I had this person guide me through a meditation and go into that room where my dad lives. And you walk in, and it's this beautiful room, and it's his gregarious self, and he's full of life, um and it's sweet. But the more I went further into the room, the darker the corners got. And I kind of experienced as being dusty and kind of scary. And then I just sat in this chair, and I just sat with like the little Leah who was overwhelmed by her dad. And then the teenage Leah who was rageful, had outrage for her dad. And so I kind of traveled down these different stages of what it's like to be a daughter to
Mm.
my dad and all the complexity that that came with. And so that was a really big healing where I just sat with the parts of me that had obstacles in relationship to father. And then a couple of years later, I got to have another healing experience that kind of completed the space in my heart, which helped me see, shit, he's a man. He's an uncle. He's an ex-husband. He's a boyfriend.
And
He's a
he's
best
your dad.
friend. He's an employer. And he's my dad. And so now I no longer kept him in the bubble of you're my dad. He
Bigger.
suddenly
Yeah.
became a man in the world. And I got to take him out of this is what
Right.
a dad's supposed to be. And as a result of processing all of that, I have intimacy with my
Mm.
dad like I never had before because I don't need him to
Yeah.
stay in the dad role. He gets to be himself
Oh, I
fully,
love that.
all of who he
Yeah,
is.
I think that's so powerful
And
because we have so
yeah,
many expectations on our partners, on our moms, our dads, our children. Like you need to, we have these ideas about the way that they should be. And those expectations
yeah,
set us up for disappointment time and time and time again. And so to really just like to take those expectations off the table and to just see the person for being a person, being a human being, just not even a
yeah,
gender or an archetype or a persona, but just like an actual human being who's just here, and some are doing the best they
yeah.
can, not all,
Who's
but ideally they are doing the best they can. And everyone has l- different amounts of resources inside of themselves. The more kind of work you're doing, like Leah is speaking about, of going into these places in your heart or into these places in your soma and your cellular body, the more resourced you become, because you're bringing parts of yourself that are underneath the conscious layer. They're subconscious, and you're bringing them up to the surface. And then you have more wholeness inside of yourself because of that. So you have a greater capacity to really be with these people in your life.
And it kind of goes back to your, saying about when you're in love,
Yeah,
you're being the love. You're in this state of beauty, and you're sharing that state of beauty with others. And I really feel like that's our
yeah,
core essence to begin with.
exactly.
And so when I or you or anyone can remove the judgments, the obstacles, the pain, and the hurt by resolving them, you don't really remove them, you resolve them, then you get to stay in that place of your essence of just being the love that you are. And therefore, that other person
Exactly.
permission to be
Yeah.
human. And Leah, permission to be human. It sure does feel good not
Oh
to be
God.
holding judgment.
This
Yeah.
myopic view of the way it should be dissipates, and then you can actually be with what truly is, to be
Yeah.
deeply in presence with that relationship. And we had an interview the other day where it was one of the phrases they said was, what happens for you when you do that thing that
Yeah.
triggers me? What happens for you when I say this thing that triggers you? Like, what's going on? And so I think that piece around getting curious and just that curiosity also breeds really powerful presence within relationships. And that's where true intimacy comes from, because then dropping into you're dropping into presence and you're dropping into trust. You're like, let me just find out what's real for you, what's true for me. And from that place, we can move forward into a more vulnerable, connected state.
Yeah, kind of back to this idea of what does the energy of love look like when negotiating
Yeah.
relationships and
Yeah. Tell us
dating
your
and all this
stories. Good
stuff.
one.
Yeah. I mean, it was great to sort of figure out how to navigate that in
Right.
my professional life. And I would say, like, one more thing professionally that may be unique to my industry, your industry, is that I'm not afraid. I mean, I was, but what I learned to do is to not be afraid of someone falling in love, but to actually encourage
Yeah,
them to
I
fall in
think it's
love.
so healing for people when
And
you can receive their love, but you still have that boundary of like, great, you love me, that's wonderful, and I'm still holding the energy of love over here. You're responsible. I think that's key too in any relationship, whether it's a work relationship or a person in your family or your friends. It's like you have to only take responsibility for what's yours and let them take responsibility for what's theirs. So if they're stuck in the emotion of love with you as a professional, that's up to them. You can give them the information, but they have to find their way to understanding the difference between the emotion of love and the energy of love. And if you're holding a strong boundary of like, I'm in the energy of love with you, but not the emotion of love, then they get that mirror neuron, right? They get that like, oh, okay, I'm starting to understand how this works now.
well, I'm really operating under two concepts and finding my way to help bridge them together for the person. One is fall in love. Fall in love. Fall so deeply in love that who you discover you're in love with
Right.
is you. And my job as a good professional is to hold up the mirror the whole time and go, fall in love, baby. Look at this face. Look at this precious being. Yes. Yes. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And the illusion is who you think you're falling in love with is me, but no, we're on a journey for you to fall in love with you. And then to give them and show them the felt sense distinctions between the energy of love and the emotion of love. And the first place that's easier to connect to is who do you love? Who are you already in relationship with in the emotion of love? And then you practice the energy of love by going out in the world and really experiencing how the felt sense is different. And there's nothing like dating that gives you like the perfect
Let's talk
experience
about
to
this felt
explore
sense that
this.
you keep saying. Like, let's give the audience specifics on that.
Well, so when you're in the emotion of love and you're in a relationship and it's like it can be draining, right? It's like there's a lot of give and a lot of take. With the energy of love, it's not quite as depleting. There's an effervescence to it. There's an excitement, there's a looking forward to, but there isn't as much of a heavy weight or a burden. Sometimes you might be in an uncomfortable situation where you have to put some clear lines or boundaries or a stronger container around a connection, but it's not
Yeah, it's
high
not as
stakes
deep.
yet. And it doesn't
Yeah.
pull on your
Mhm.
tender heart. You might still get
Mhm.
palpations and like, you're, what's the word, Twitter pated, and you're excited and all of that energy that bubbles is all there. It's kind of like when you're
Mhm.
excited about going on a trip and you got this great vacation coming up and you got a little jazz in your step. That's how I think of the energy of love. Or sometimes the energy of love
Mhm.
is just really peaceful
Mhm.
and it's chill and
Mhm.
there's just flow to it. And so, you can be yourself. But again, there's nothing that's going to cost you too much other than just being in integrity and being responsible for
Yeah.
how you're showing up. So that's sort of how I would describe the felt sense. Would you
The
add anything to
energy
that?
of love. I mean, all of my patients for, these past couple decades that I've been treating people, they all definitely feel my love. So I feel like my
Hmm.
cultivation of my being in love with life, with myself, with the universe, with this process called life, um, I think that they can sort of rest in that and bask in that. So when somebody has a highly cultivated sense of the energy of love, they are very magnetic. You want to be around them. That's very healing to be around them. Sometimes I think patients just come to me just to be around me, not because I'm that great of an
Sure.
acupuncturist or therapist, although I am. But um, I think
Yeah.
also it's just that energy of love it's got like a lighter quality to it. There's not so much depth to it. There is depth to it, but it's a different kind of depth that doesn't
It goes
yeah,
it goes
not
wide.
Not into a
The
well. Yeah,
emotional love goes
exactly.
deep. Yes, the
Yeah.
energy of love goes wide. And I'm glad you brought up that the energy of love is also a place where we can
Yeah.
transmit healing energy from our hands. We can transmit arousal from our hands. We can transmit any emotional vibration, connection, resonance from our body to someone else's body. And so if you're in the healing arts and you put your hands on bodies, then you are really likely very connected to the energy of love. Because as you're passing healing energy, loving energy, forgiving energy, hope energy, faith energy, whatever the case may be, belonging energy, you are transmitting the energy of love. And so you can become very skillful at that. And that's one of the things that tantrikas end up having a
Mhm.
lot of practice with
Mhm.
in the work. And a lot of couples who are playing with this.
The
Yeah.
felt sense of the emotion of love is, oh, it's such a it's like you can feel it in your heart. You can feel where this is a place where actually we can, yeah, we can actually leak energy and we can take on people's energy pretty easily because the boundaries are more blurry. They're not quite as solid when you're in the emotion of love with somebody.
Vulnerability is more acute.
But oh, way more, way, way more. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, it just depends too on how much you love that person, like how or I was gonna say how much you want that thing or that person or that situation to come through. The emotions are gonna be higher stakes, if it's something that you're really, really desiring. So again, that desire and that expectation, that's kind of why the Buddha says, the root of suffering, because it's this thing that, may or may not be attained. And if it's not, then there's the suffering. And if it is, so we can
Well,
transcend all of that by dropping into the energy
yeah.
of love more and more.
Well, here's a good example. If you have a child, ding,
Mhm.
ding, ding, emotion of love, and that child is out in the world and you worry about that child and you love that child or you have to split that child with a spouse and you don't get them all the time, like that ache where it feels like your heart lives on the outside of you, attached to another being, like that's the emotion of love.
I was thinking
If
about
you have
that
a
for my
pet,
dog just this morning. I'm like, I really miss my dog.
right, like that feeling inside that you get for your pet, that's
Yeah.
the emotion of love. Also, like I've been reading these love stories, big surprise. And there are these vulnerable moments in the storytelling, and I get that
Mm,
sinking feeling. Like when I remember falling in love and I get that
mm,
sinking feeling of like, oh, here's a tender little insecurity, or here's a place where someone's being really tender and really vulnerable, and I can
yeah.
viscerally feel it. No, I'm not necessarily in the emotion of love with this book, but I'm reading about the emotion of love. And the reading of it
Yeah.
brings me right back to that moment in time when the energy of your love wants to transform into the emotion of love. And when you've got big chemistry with someone, your emotion of love becomes very magnetic. It wants to draw you in. And that's when this distinction, I think, is one of the most energetically responsible things that we can be present to, that we can be an inquiry around.
When the emotion of love starts to take over the space of the energy of love, it doesn't mean that the energy of love isn't there anymore. That can still reside.
That's right.
Yes, but you almost can't control the emotion of love. Like it's just going to come. I mean, you can push it off, you
Yeah.
can
It
stave it
takes
off as long as
practice.
you think you can, but at some point it's going to take
Yeah.
over you. I think that's a good distinction too. It's like it just comes. It's just you love what you love who you love. It's just you don't have control over it.
Yeah. I think you can have an awareness around it that can keep you from tragedy per se. Um, but it will, you have to keep tending to it. And this is where
Mhm.
agreements are really important. And and there are parts that like you said, it's going to do what it wants to do. And how you support it and hold it is what depends on how painful it is if things have to change. And so this is where it gets very confrontational, is when we are dating and someone isn't ready for what we're ready for, and trying to manage your heart and your feelings around all of that, because it's so tempting. So I was dating a guy, and I was really at this place in my life where I was calling in the PhD of relationship, as I like to say. I wanted the mega of partnership in this lifetime. And I'd done so much work to kind of prepare myself for it. Also, I had done a lot of open relationship experimentation for years, and I was ready to really pair bond. Met this great guy, and he had done the teacher training, and we started hanging out, becoming friends, and then we started having trips together, and then we started looking at, well, maybe we should work together. And we had so many wonderful values that were living in the ballpark of the same house. So it was like how we traveled, we loved, how we thought about money, we loved, how we thought about spirituality was right on top, how we thought about sex was great, how we liked a vacation, how we liked to work. So many things were in alignment. And I had known, because of previous relationships, that every time there was a breakup for me, it was because there was a value that didn't line up and I was ignoring it in the beginning. So I was going to be very careful about not ignoring when there was a mismatch. And he, for the first time in his life, was so excited about open relationships. And I'm like, I'm just coming out of like 15 years of experimenting with open relationships. No, thank you. And I also didn't want to hold him back. I didn't want to convince him. He'd had 3 marriages. He's a serial monogamist. Like, these were all warning signs. And so we would have these conversations about the emotion of love and the energy of love. And because that value is misaligned, I wasn't like protecting myself in the way that a lot of people think about protecting themselves, where they wall themselves off. I was keeping myself authentic and available for love, but I was monitoring the emotion of love, because it wanted to pull me in. And there were times when, and we made an agreement, we're just going to do the energy of love. And then my heart would start to crack open. It was like, ooh, I want to put you in a room. I really want to put you in a room. And I would have to say, okay, check-in time. I was like, I'm really liking this. I'm really loving the direction we're going. And my heart is wanting to place you. And I want to check in. How is your heart doing? How are you feeling about the emotion of love? And he would tell me, let's stick to the energy. Let's stick to the energy. I'm not ready for that. And it hurt. It was an ouch. I was bummed. But I respected him. I had high regard for him, and I had high regard for myself. And so I don't want to be in love with someone who's not in love with me. I don't want to be in the emotion of love by
And
myself.
so how long were you able to dance with this
No, thank you.
one?
Well, once I really realized, okay, we're likely not going to have a future, it's time to like let that idea and fantasy go. So what is it that I want? Well, I don't want to waste my time when I'm looking for my PhD in relationship. I got a guy who needs to come into town. So we decided to practice sex magic, a certain type of tantric lovemaking, where you bring your intentions fully into the container, into the space. You share them with your lover. And my share was, I want to bring in the love of my life. And so we would make love with setting that energy out into the world. And very quickly, within, I would say, less than 4 months, Matthew came into my life.
And when Matthew first came in, he was energy of like he was a client, right? So you were in that teacher-student role.
That was energy of love. And so when we decided to go, okay, are we complete with our professional relationship? Because we were feeling like, wow, there's such a pull here. I want to investigate this. Then we changed containers, went to the beach, we did a ceremony. Okay, we're going to let go of the professional construct, because I can't be in relationship as a woman if I'm teacher. I needed to take the teacher archetype off. I needed to take the student archetype off of him, so that him and I could just be man, woman, doing life together. And then we had full reign to go, let's jump into the deep end with the emotion of love. But I'm so grateful for the experience that this
Yeah.
other partner gave me to really deeply explore being romantic with somebody, having sex with somebody, being lovers with somebody, being BFFs with somebody, and sticking to the energy of love. And then I just thought I was so smart to use this opportunity to pull in what I wanted. It didn't have to be a relationship that was wasting time until the one arrived. I could be purposeful and draw in
I think that
that
is
love
really wise.
affair.
And, I guide a lot of my single women who are still in the dating realm. And ultimately, they do want to find their one. They want to find their beloved, the one that they're going to spend the rest of their lives with. And they'll date all these guys, and he's got this, but he doesn't have that, and the this and the that. And I'm like, well, he sounds like a great practice partner. You can just practice
Yeah.
with him, practice your tantra stuff with him, practice your vulnerability with him. If there's not a lot of like emotional attachment to him turning out to be the one or some way or some certain style of relationship, then he's a really great person to do sex magic practice with, especially if there's good sexual chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah. And to just be able to go, I can hold myself in this. It doesn't have to be so out of control. We can hold each other's hearts with protective, loving energy and stay in agreement
Yeah.
with where we're headed and check in with each other and
Hmm.
go, how are we doing? I'm feeling
Yeah.
tempted. And then just be in your body, be there for being brave if you have to tell the person, I'm not ready for the emotion of love. And also being real and vulnerable and feeling your feelings when you're disappointed because they're not ready
Yeah,
at the
I
same
think
time.
that is one of the big fears around doing this is like, well, if I open up and like have this, practice partner, like if I go there with him and start doing these tantric practices with him, then he's going to fall in love with me and I'm going to have to deal with that. So really this piece around communicating, like having the conversation, having this conversation, hey, do you know about the difference between the energy of love and the motion of love? This is something that I'm exploring right now. Let me tell you what I've learned.
You have them listen
Yeah.
to this
Yeah.
episode.
Send them this episode. Like, let me tell you what I've learned. And so this is where I'm at with you. I'm in the energy of love. And I'd like to use our connection because it's really awesome to, call in my beloved because that's what I'm calling in. And I don't think you're it, and
Right. Or to call in your next
anything.
job. You're
Yeah.
looking for a
Home,
job, to
whatever.
call
Yeah.
a new car to
Could be
sell your
anything.
house,
Yeah,
the greatest
totally.
buyer.
And that I think if you can be there's a new level of respect and honor is co-created when you say to someone like, God, our chemistry is amazing. You're amazing. Like you check all the boxes and I don't feel like I can drop into the emotion of love with you. I don't feel like you're my one, but like, hey, let's use some of this time that we have together and use it wisely.
Yeah. Yeah. And, this is the thing that I think people often do to set themselves up is they act like they hear what the
Right.
person is saying, but they aren't
No.
really taking it in. There's another part of them that's in the fantasy of, oh,
Yeah,
you just
yeah,
don't realize
totally.
it yet.
Oh, you're gonna fall in love with me. Oh yeah, I'm so
Yeah,
great. You're gonna
right,
fall
right,
in love with
right.
me.
You will wake up and you
That's
will
right.
realize I am the
And
one.
again, you can't control this stuff. It either is or it isn't. So keeping your finger on the pulse of what is so crucial. And that requires presence, which comes from feeling sensation in your body. If you're starting to feel that deep heart
Mm.
achy, oh my God, I'm gonna blah, 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 blah. If they go away, I'm gonna be shattered. You know that feeling. It's very different than like, oh, if they go away, whatever. The next person will come and I'll be good.
Yeah, that's actually a good point because you could have that sinking ache and not attach to it. When you stay in the energy of love, you would notice the sensation, but you are not your biology. You are not your brain chemistry. You can actually choose and go, wow, I'm really noticing some sadness or some grief or some letdown or some disappointment because I want this big, yummy feeling to continue, but I'm going to allow this sinking feeling to just kind of keep me in check. I'm going to allow it to be a sign and information and guidance to go, let me reel in where I'm leaning too deep into the emotion of love. Let me get back into the energy of love. And so then you have to find out what helps you get back into the energy of love. Well, go be in love with the world.
Yeah.
Go be in love with nature. Go be in love with somebody you meet at
Yeah.
the checkout line.
Go do
Right.
something you love to do. Like, what's your love task? What's the thing that when you're doing it, you're not trying to get better at it? You're not trying to do it so someone else likes you for it. You're not trying to, you know, do anything other than what you're doing. For a lot of people, their love
Mhm.
task is like
Mhm.
gardening or
Puttering,
cooking or
organizing.
painting. It's some kind of creative project usually. I love to like
Yeah,
walk on the
you
cliffs
so
and
do.
chant,
I
you
like
know,
to paint a rock.
whatever your thing is. Yeah, she loves to paint a rock. I mean, come on. Just whatever your love task is, you go do that and you be again in capital I, capital N in love. You know, it's all very reminiscent of like what a lot of spiritual teachers talk about, which is like, look, there's this field of isness. There's this field of pure consciousness
Mm.
that we are just visiting in, you know, this persona Willow, that persona Leah, we're just visitors in this field. So it's never born, it never dies, and there's a lot of love in it, you know, but it's not emotional love. A lot of teachers will talk about like the sky, that field, that plane of love, that energy of love is the sky. But then the clouds are going to pass
Mhm.
through. And those are the emotions. And those are the emotions of love, which are not always ooey gooey. Sometimes they're fuck, this hurts. God, this is painful. I don't want to, I wish I hadn't fallen in love with that person, you know, and so it can be all different kinds of clouds passing through that sky.
Sometimes they're raining, they're stormy. So, like, coming back to the emotion of love, how conscious can we be when we are in the awareness of going there and we can partner with someone and go, we're going to do this together. I'm going to receive you in my heart and I will endeavor to protect your heart, and you're placing me in your heart and you're going to endeavor to protect mine. That was actually the thing that really sealed the deal with Matt. Is he texted me and he said, I'll protect your heart if you'll protect mine. As we decided, as
Oh,
we made it official, we're going to head in this direction. And that just went ding, ding, ding. I am throwing the covers off this hard and we are going. We're going there.
you know, I love that. It's so sweet. I know you guys are so sweet together. So there's also though, I just had this flash of like there's so many relationships out there. And I know I've been in them myself. You have too, I'm sure, where it's like we're not in that, we're not in that
Yeah.
agreement. Like we're not gonna protect, we're not that deep into each other's hearts. And those relationships can last years, they could last
Yeah.
decades, they can last a long time. And that's why you can feel so lonely inside of a relationship because the true rooms in your heart are not being occupied, yet somebody's walking the hallways.
You, you want to know what I think it is? I think it's when the energy of love is devoid from the partnership because the emotional love is there. If that partner got in a tragic accident, you would be devastated. If they, if there are big things in life that could happen that would just feel like your heart was being ripped out of you. So even though it might be a little numb, they're still very much in the emotion of love because you'll do the hard shit. And sometimes it feels like you've been doing the hard shit for 10
Mhm,
years and you could use some relief,
mhm.
like, can we get the joy back that also has to do with the emotion of love, not just the hardship? And that's where I think the energy of love is something to be reminded of. It's like, hey, this tending to love thing requires your presence. It requires you to draw the energy of love and spread it and bathe them in it and bathe yourself in it and to go do things in nature, to do things that you love to do together. You have to like actively, you can't just we get so
Can't be
lazy, we get so
apathetic.
complacent.
Yeah.
And it's that complacency that takes the joy from love out of our lives. So when you add some energy of love, when you touch them with your hands because you're conscious of what you want them to experience, babe, I want you to feel desire. I'm going to send desire into your body. Then we're going somewhere. Then we get to reactivate some juice. So it's this energy of love and this emotion of love are two major ingredients that we need in our life. But the emotion of love without the energy of love is like the secret ingredients
Mhm,
missing.
mhm.
And you have a bland dish.
Mm.
The casserole needs some salt.
I love that, yeah.
Please top that with cheese.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, and that's very yin yang, it's like the one does not exist without the other. They do go
Yeah.
together, like, once you've dropped into the emotion of love with somebody because truly the emotion of love doesn't come from that other person, it comes from you. It comes from your own love inside of your own heart and your own being. And so when you're, falling in love emotionally with another person, it's because of all the love that you've cultivated, both energy and emotional.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So tell us what you think about the emotion of love and the energy of love. We want to hear your stories. How can you help us come up with even better language that describes the felt sense of the emotion of love and the energy of love? If you have a love story to tell us, man, we love those. So you can email those stories to support@sexreimagined.com. You can leave us a voicemail on our hotline, which is speakpipe.com/sexreimagined. And you could leave a comment on this episode, whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to it on your favorite streaming.
Yeah, sending you all so much love, the energy of love, and we really do love you guys. We won't go to therapy with you, but we really
Right.
do love you.
Yes. Unless you become our new best friend, then we'll totally go to therapy with you, but you got to figure out how to do that. All right, y'all. Love, love,
Ciao.
love.
Thanks for tuning in. Leah Piper is a tantric sex master coach and a positive psychology facilitator. Dr. Willow Brown is both a Chinese and functional medicine doctor and a Taoist sexology teacher. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.